Sonia Kruger, welcome back to the Stella Podcast.
Thank you, Sarah Lamarquand.
This is your third appearance in the Stella studio with me. You and I sat down in 2024, and then around this time last year we sat down. You were part of a roundtable conversation with me and some of your then fellow Gold Logie nominees. Logies look a bit different for you this year. I understand you will be co-hosting the red carpet coverage again with Dr. Chris Brown. So
Yes.
I don't know how you are with the frocks. Something about Sonia Kruger makes me want to say frocks.
Frocks, right. Well, I get into trouble because they're gowns.
Yes.
And the gown that I'm wearing is by Lea de Gloria, and it is spectacular. She's an incredible Australian designer, and I've been lucky enough to wear some of her dresses before. In fact, I wore one last year. Do you remember that white, beautiful pleated? It was this heavy satin, and it was so gorgeous. I wore it into the actual ceremony because the dress that I was wearing was a bit hard to sit in because it was made from a very kind of stiff sort of fabric.
Oh, is that why you did a change?
Yeah, because some dresses, when you sit in them, they kind of lose their shape a little bit. So and they're not so comfortable for the few hours that you're there for the telecast. So I actually changed into this Lea de Gloria dress, and I've been a huge fan of hers for years. I remember when Mandy McElhenney wore one of her dresses to the Logies about a decade ago, and I was like, wow, that dress is amazing. Who's it by? And it was Lea.
And I imagine that you've learned a few things, as in, can I sit down in this if I'm going inside to sit down during I was going to say 3-hour ceremony, but I think at last count the Logies go for about 45 hours. Is that right?
It's quite about a fortnight, I believe. What I've learned is that there are certain things you can wear on a show like Dancing with the Stars or The Voice, and it's fine, because you might be in it for a few hours. Sequined things, for example, sometimes they can cut on the inside of the dress because where they cut those sequins and seam them, if the dress isn't lined, and a lot of the time they're not, they can be, by the end of it, you can be sort of shredded underneath the dress. Anything with feathers in it. I did wear a dress once with feathers that looked so beautiful and soft, but sitting in it was like all the quills sticking into those parts of the body.
Yes.
That after a few hours
thought about that
was like a bed of nails. Yeah. The last thing I would want to do is to bore anyone on TV. So I like to try and keep surprising people so that they get to see something that's a little bit unique or different or unusual. Yeah, it's a challenge, but it's one of the things we really love doing on the shows.
Have you ever bored anyone on TV? I've not seen that.
I've bored myself. I've bored myself, and I don't know if I've bored myself, but I cringe. I cringe when I see myself. And now Maggie, my 11-year-old, she has taken to mimicking me. So whenever, say The Voice is on and I'll throw to the break, I'll be, don't go anywhere, Australia, we'll be right back. And she'll go, don't go anywhere, Australia, we'll be right back. And I'm like, stop it, I don't sound like that. But
and then her voice is in your head when you're next doing it.
Yes.
You're like, every time.
Yes.
Because she's 11 now, is that right? Yes.
Yes.
I tell you, there's something about kids that they just will put you in your spot.
They will level you out.
And then a few levels down that.
That's it.
That's so funny. Over the years, on a ratio, whose words ring more in your ears? The anonymous person on social media commenting on something you've said or something you wear. The executive in all of our jobs, there's always powers that be, executive producers and people that control.
I think they've given up on me. I think they've given up trying to tell me what to wear, because there have been moments over the years where there have been comments or whatever, but I think they've just realised that this is one of the parts of the job that we've got it, and there really aren't that many sort of television executives, I think, who would think that they know that better than you do, as a woman, and knowing your own body, that you really have probably got a better idea than they do.
Let's talk a little bit about the Logies. You have been nominated for the last 4 years and you won, of course, in 2023. This year you didn't get nominated. I really mean this question not expecting a particular answer. Is that sad or is it a relief?
It's a great question because I have been lucky enough to be nominated 4 times, and that surprised me, frankly. And I fully expected it to stop after the first nomination. The fact that it kept going for a little while was lovely. But you do kind of get to a point where you think, I think it is time for somebody else to get that recognition. And if I can just say this to you, Sarah, and I think you'll probably understand, I can't believe that Natalie Barr has not been nominated. She, to me, I was so ready to mount a campaign for Nat, because she has worked so long, for such a long time. She's been so successful. Look at Sunrise and what it's doing today. It's really probably stronger than it ever has been. So I'm going to campaign for Nat for Gold next year because I think she needs to be nominated for sure. And Matt too, they're both great anchors and they do a great job and they work super hard. So yeah, the time has come for that. So as far as me not being nominated, no, it is kind of a relief in that I know I can enjoy myself on the night. So I just plan to get lit.
Well, I was going to ask because you're working at the beginning of the night doing the red carpet coverage.
Yes.
And I don't want to feel like I'm, sugarcoating it or being simplistic about it. But when I say it must be a bit of a relief, because I say that through the prism that you've not only been nominated 4 times for the Gold Logie, but you have won. So I imagine that really does bring a relief with it, because you and I've spoken before and on this podcast last year. I mean, again, people will think it sounds disingenuous, but you've got to get up and make a speech, and there's a lot of pressure.
Exactly. Yeah, no. So I'm glad that, I'm super happy too to see the nominees that are there this year. I don't want to detract from them at all. When I talk about Nat, I just personally would love to see her get nominated. But, Sam Pang, what a legend. To me, when Sam came out that first year and hosted the Logies, and I think I was nominated that year. I felt like such a fraud. I honestly was sitting there in the audience laughing at his opening monologue, thinking Sam should be nominated for Gold. He should be getting up there and picking up a trophy tonight because he's so brave to get out there and do that job. No thanks.
But why did that make you feel like a fraud?
Sometimes I just look at people like Sam Pang or Sean McAuliffe, and it's something to do with their intellectual style of humour, or I can't even put my finger on what it is, but I always feel like a bit of a dunce. And I know I'm not, but I just kind of feel a bit like that. And I know I have different talents. I know that Sam probably wouldn't be up there busting out a cha-cha anytime soon, and he might think, I really wish I could do that. I doubt it. But anyway, do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do. I do.
And I don't think you ever look at yourself like that anyway. I'm my own worst critic, and I'm sure you are too. And Sam's probably sitting there saying, I don't know why I'm nominated, but yeah, I think he's brilliant.
It's very relatable, you talking about that you feel a bit of a fraud, because, again, I don't think most people they just wouldn't understand that. I think I'm voicing what a lot of people would think. How could Sonia Kruger, how could somebody with that CV and those achievements?
Have you heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect?
No.
Okay. So the Dunning-Kruger effect it's a really interesting, what do you call it? See, this is going to be me trying to explain it now and sound intellectual. But it's basically like a law, like Murphy's Law. But what Dunning-Kruger did, I think, was that they studied people and they came to realise that the less experienced someone was, the more they felt they knew and the more confident they were. The more experienced people became, the less confident they were. And this is probably a really bad example, and there'll be people from the University of Sydney going, oh, that is not the definition of the Dunning-Kruger effect. But what surprised me about that is that Kruger was part of that experiment. I'm not sure whether he was the dumb people or the smart people, but do you know, but when you think about it, a lot of the people I know in television who are very accomplished, and very good at their job from my perspective, would not say the same thing about themselves. So maybe
Absolutely.
It's the Dunning-Kruger effect.
At the risk of sounding patronising, you're so intelligent and well-informed. Is there a part of you that feels that you are not seen that way by yourself or by other people?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. It's hard for me to say how other people see me because I don't really know. I know how my friends see me. And I think they probably think I'm semi-intelligent and sometimes a complete idiot. So, it's one of those things where, I really don't know how. Maybe can we throw it open to the comment section?
I mean, that is a very brave woman,
That's
but
dangerous,
absolutely
isn't it?
we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
Can I just say, I think that definition, is like semi-intelligent
And a bit of an idiot.
is like that sort of summation of a well-rounded human being, I would say.
Yeah.
So a new season of The Voice actually starting tonight, August 2nd, for people that are listening, reading, watching this on day of. You have hosted The Voice on 7 for 5 years now, since 2021, and you hosted it for a good few years before that on previous Network 9.
Yes.
So how do you come into this each season, making it feel fresh and new, or does that sort of just take care of itself just through the sheer nature of the coaches and of course,
the contestants? Yeah, it kind of does actually, because every year is slightly different, and this year in particular is very different because I'm sure you've seen the promos which feature Tones and I, who is our secret 5th coach on the show. I don't want to give too much of it away because how it comes about, how it transpires, is very much a part of the fabric of that, the blind auditions, and what happens this year. But she is quite extraordinary. I mean, what is it? One of the highest selling female artists ever, one of our greatest musical exports ever, billions and billions and billions of streams. She is a true Australian success story. So I think the audience is really going to love the inclusion of Tones and I.
It's nice, I think, when a show has been established format internationally and nationally, and the different people that come through and so almost come home as well, which is what's happened with Tones and I and happened with some of the coaches in previous years as well.
Interestingly too, to make a change to the format, like on a show like The Voice, you really have to, you need to have that signed off by the production house that developed the show in the first place. And I don't think this has actually been done anywhere else in the world, but now they're talking about going down this road with other territories around the world, which is a bit of a feather in Australia's cap because, the innovation and the reinvention of these big global formats is what keeps them ticking along and what keeps them, holds the audience and keeps them there year after year. So, yeah, we're lucky we've got some very clever people that work on The Voice.
What about the contestants, Sonia? So they're often in one of the most confronting, scary moments of their life when you first meet them.
Oh, yeah, they are. And when they walk out, it is silent. When you watch it at home and you could hear a pin drop, it's like that in the room, and you think, how can it be so quiet in here with all of these people, people in the audience and the coaches, but it's so quiet you're scared to breathe. And then they have to perform. I couldn't do that. At one point in a commercial break, I think the coaches started singing You're the Voice, because Richard Marx is a huge John Farnham fan, as we all are. They just started singing it, and then sometimes they roll on what's happening in the commercial breaks because it's really entertaining to put that to air. And they're like, get in there, Sonia, get in there and sing it. And so I'm standing next to Sporty Spice, miming, right? I'm miming because I knew the control room could hear me through my microphone, and it was so bad that I didn't want them to hear me, and I did not want that to go to air. So I don't know how anybody gets up and auditions on The Voice. It's really... It's fantastic though. I get to watch it. That's the thing. And that's where I get frustrated because somebody might be a great entertainer and I want them to turn, and sometimes they don't. They don't always turn when I want them to turn. Sadly.
You mentioned Sporty Spice. Melanie C joined me on the Stella podcast earlier this year, and I wanted to ask you about something she said. She said, I think women are having a real moment. It's so important. We talk about this on The Voice. Women have something to say. We've lived. There are so many great things that happen with age. Some of it's not so good, some of it great. And one of those things is wisdom and a real comfortableness with yourself. I love those comments from her. And given she said this is something that gets discussed on set, would love to get your thoughts on that.
She is such a delight, you know, and I have pinched myself for the last couple of seasons getting to work with her because she is a Spice Girl for a start, but she's also, I think, one of the most genuine and intelligent, warm, caring people and kind people that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. She is really, really such a delight. And she's coming from a really interesting background too. And she has lived a life.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it, you know, together about some of the things that she went through. I know she spoke to you too about the phone hacking scandal and the invasion of privacy and having that extraordinary amount of fame at such a young age and battling an eating disorder, all sorts of things she's been through. And I think she is absolutely right when, you know, she says that women are having a moment. I think when we look at our parents' generation, where we are today, it's such a different place, you know. My mother, when she grew up, really essentially probably wasn't encouraged to get a higher education and a profession. It was more about, you know, if you did go to work, it might have been for a short time before you had children, and then you had children and you were a stay-at-home mother and that was your career. Now we know that, you know, women go to work, and that's given us a great deal of freedom. And I think with that, it's just created a generation of women who are very capable, but also I don't think it means that anybody's lost compassion or empathy or our soft side. I think you still can have both, but women are really just forging the way ahead for this next generation. And I know I've spoken to you about this before too, but it's really important for me to kind of instill in Maggie that you need to be independent and you need to be able to look after yourself, and you have to advocate for yourself, and, you know, don't ever rely on anybody else to do that for you. You know, you want to be in control of your own life.
As you say, you're not hardened by it, but you become genuinely more resilient in that you just know you can come out the other side of things.
See, that's the word I was looking for. Resilience, exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. It's we've learnt that, and I think maybe too, women of this generation, and I don't know if you get this on your Instagram feed, but it's like Gen X kids who grew up in cars that didn't have seatbelts, and we were out until it was dark. And, you know, the way we grew up, we survived that childhood. And now I think we've carried that through into our working lives. So, yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it, that how every generation is different, obviously, and who knows what the future will bring. But yeah, this one's been fun.
Look, absolutely. And I also thought the aspect of the conversation with Mel, and again, you and I have discussed this a lot, is the longevity play. And when you were starting out as a young actor and dancer and performer and then presenter, I imagine there's no world that you thought, I will still be here on primetime TV in my early 60s. I mean, you turned 60 last year. It's incredible.
No, I thought I'd be lucky if I lasted like a year or two. I made so many mistakes when I first started, but 100%. And I think the fact that, you know, there are so many women who are still working in this industry, whether it's behind the scenes or in front of the camera, both places are important. And I think we're seeing a lot of women now holding those executive roles in networks, which is another great thing, because if we look at a lot of our audience, and I don't want to sort of categorize people too much, because I mean, I love the footy as much as the next person, but there are certain things that are kind of like shows that skew female, shows that skew male, you know, and it's a good idea to have somebody who, you know, can embody that, kind of relating to that idea in terms of what we need to bring to our audience. So I think that the fact that the women are being valued, particularly in those executive roles, is a great step forward in media.
And you're on the podcast 2024. You'd won the Gold Logie the year before, but my point is actually about the shows that you were helming at that time. There's so many that even with my research, I'm forgetting them. But, you know, there was The Voice. There was one year where you then also had a nomination for Dancing with the Stars, Big Brother. One year you had like 5 shows attached to the Gold Logie nomination, and at the moment it's The Voice. So how does that feel, being a bit more scaled back? Do you have a bit more time to breathe and focus on other things?
Things got really busy in COVID. And that's crazy when you think about it, because everybody was locked down, people were at home, but television was deemed to be an essential service. And so in that time, I think I worked harder than I have ever worked in my life, you know, because we were shooting, people were so uncertain about what was going to happen, whether we would get programs to air the next year. So we're kind of shooting back to back to get things in the can and ready to go, just in case big sporting events, and the Olympics fell over that year. Like, it was just such a movable feast. So that continued for a couple of years, where I think there was this overwhelming sense of we need to be prolific here, and we need to really just shoot as much as we can all the time. And what's happened, I think, is that things have normalised a little bit. And so, and this year, for example, you know, the Commonwealth Games are on 7, but that meant the dancing got to have a rest. So essentially, it has been a little bit quieter for me, which has allowed me to do some work on other things in my life, which is good because I get to spend more time with Maggie. I get to be more involved with the school, and that brings me so much happiness. You know, it's really, we've just had the whole, you know, the end of term, the music concert, the dance at Stedford's, you know, whether it's a sports carnival, there's just always something going on. I'm sure you would be busy with 2 boys.
Yes. No dance, or I'd love that though.
Yeah.
How are you as, I was not a stage
dance mother?
Yes, as a dancer, that's right.
I just cry. It's so ridiculous. Every time I see her dance, I'm like sitting there with tears rolling down my eyes, because she tries so hard, and it just brings me so much joy, and I'm so proud of her because she loves it, you know. And her whole group of, you know, the group of dancers that she performs with, you know, they've got their costumes, and she's done her own makeup and hair, and I just, it blows me away when I see her out there doing her thing.
I mean, she's only 11, so I'm not going to start putting pressure on her expectations. But any inkling of, you know, what she might want to do with herself? Is she showing an interest in any particular?
Well, no, she's not really. She's just kind of enjoying her life, I think, as a kid, which is great, because I sort of want her to be a kid for as long as she possibly can be. Sometimes I feel like she's had this weird cadetship in television because of Craig and I. So she knows what a play on or a play off or a promo, she knows what this all means. And sometimes she'll talk about it, and she'll use, you know, television vernacular, and it's bizarre to me. It's like, that's weird.
Is there a part of you that wouldn't want her to go through an industry that does have those ups and downs that her parents have seen?
No, because I think every industry has its ups and downs. I think it happens in every workplace. I think, industries are constantly affected by the economy and outside forces and internal forces, and I think it gets back to that idea of being resilient. You have to learn to roll with the punches, and evolution is important. So, whatever is happening with the media at the moment, people will still need to get their news. They will still want to watch sport. They will still want to be entertained in some form. So I think it's about really evolving and giving your audience what it is they want at the end of the day.
There's been media reports that you might be moving overseas.
Yeah,
maybe
I read that.
Yeah, okay, right, all right. So maybe first you've heard of it, which is essentially my question. For people that haven't read what Sonia and I have seen some headlines around, that you might be looking at opportunities in the UK or the US. Any truth to
I think
those?
you'd be crazy not to, I mean, there are a couple of projects that I would love to do in London and in the States. I'd love to actually go and do a couple of guest judging spots on Strictly Come Dancing in the UK, or in America, should it ever come up. I think the UK is probably more familiar because of Strictly Ballroom, although that was a big movie in America too. So I think if they ever wanted Tina Sparkle to turn up and be a guest judge on either of those shows, she would be there. She would totally turn up.
Is there a world where you see yourself going back to something in morning TV or breakfast TV?
Oh gosh, that's a really interesting question. I don't think so. I don't really see myself in that place. I feel, I think I feel at home in the nighttime in people's lounge rooms, and that's not to say I didn't love. I never really did breakfast television because that's super early. But morning television is a different kettle of fish. That's kind of fun because you get to hang out with a lot of people that you like and that you know, and you get really familiar with that group, and it is a privilege being in people's houses every day. So that's kind of fun. But I think really my home is more in the nighttime.
We've spoken about this or touched upon this, but I always find it interesting people that also can take whatever comes at them on live TV. I mean, that's a particular skill set. And you, in the course of your career, have done a lot of live TV. I mean, it's an obvious question to ask if you have a preference, but...
Yeah, no, because I do love live television. There is nothing else like it. When you're doing a big show like The Voice, you're recording it as live can be. There is no stopping and going back and doing it again. So it is the same vibe and the audience is there. But there's just something funny about being live, knowing that it's just, once it's done, it's gone, it's out there, and there's no going back, So, yeah, it is really a buzz like no other.
So you have anchored live TV in front of a couple of million people. You've been on stage. You do, as I say, you really have to take whatever happens. Does that give you a little bit of, to use the word again, resilience, or a little bit feeling, for want of a much better word, a bit bulletproof in terms of just situations in life, because you can think on your feet and you've got your poker face, or in your case, like a very quick comeback at the ready?
Yeah, well, not always. Sometimes there's a comeback, or sometimes you'll go home and you'll think about a comeback like hours later and you're like, why? How could I have missed
the
it?
Worst?
Yeah. But it does, I think, when you have, and when I started on live television, the very first live cross I ever did, I thought we were off air when we were on air, and I thought we were checking comms. And so Anne Fullwood and Andrew Daddo were like, how's it going? And I was like, it's really hot, and, I'm like, it's hot. It's really hot. And they were like, we're live. Like, and at that point, I was supposed to be doing a proper weather report, and I was just standing there going, yeah, it's hot. It's just hot. So I think when ridiculous, but now see, when stuff like that happens, I love it. And I think most people love it when they can see mistakes happening in front of them, because nobody's perfect. But what it does is it makes you realise that it's not nobody dies, it's really, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. And that tomorrow it'll be another mistake. So it doesn't really matter.
Is there anything on your wish list? I mean,
yeah, wow. That's a great question. I think there's probably more than just one thing. That's,
yeah.
I would, like, in terms of if I could do any kind of show going forward, if I could do any kind of, if there was anything else creative I could do, it would probably involve travel, because I love that. And I do have a degree in leisure. So I'm not joking.
No, I know that you do. I love it.
A Bachelor of Arts in Leisure Studies. Now, there's a degree you don't see every day, do you?
I mean, do you feel that you've put that particular part of your tertiary education to use? Yeah, because if not
as much as I would like. I would really like to do that a little bit more, actually. I have got some ideas about some travel programs we could make. I think it's also come full circle. Remember, it used to be Great Outdoors Getaway. We ran a lot of travel shows, and then they kind of fell out of favour for a while, but they're coming back. And I think if you look at tourism, international tourism, domestic tourism, there's, people are really wanting to see the world, and maybe COVID putting the brakes on everyone made us feel like, nope, if we have freedom, we're going to get out there and explore. So, yeah, for me, travel has always been a passion. Why not? Everybody loves it, don't they?
Sonia Kruger, thank you so much for your time. It's been so lovely to speak to you. Thank you for coming back into the studio. Thanks again. I will see you next time.
See you soon.